it will come to my recording right now. Okay, we have started with the recording. Okay, then I can start with my opening speech. First of all, good evening, everyone. Presidents of BPW federations, affiliates, members, guests, and esteemed panelists, of course. Welcome all. So we as supporters, advocates, fighters, activists for gender equality are very angry, sad, and disappointed and shocked about the withdrawal of Turkey from Istanbul Convention. The Istanbul Convention is the first convention in international law that has the power to sanction violence against women, which includes the establishment of a binding and independent control system and emphasizes that violence is a result of gender inequality. We are very disappointed because Turkey was the first country to sign and ratify Istanbul Convention, which has opened the doors of a new era on behalf of our country in preventing violence against women. Turkey's withdrawal is so unbelievable because Istanbul Convention is a matter of life and death. With the decision of Turkey, our concern is about the immediate and future reflections of this decision in our homeland and in many other countries showing tendencies in that regard. So what will happen to our rights? What is the purpose of this decision? What will happen to women and girls who face violence at home, in the streets, at work, and many others? How are they planning to prevent violence without Istanbul Convention? We will remain asking these questions without getting tired until we have a proper answer and a sustainable solution. As we say in Turkish, vazgeçmiyoruz. We won't give up for women who can't ask these questions, the women who are oppressed. We are hundreds of women and men. We are powerful and united women organizations. We won't back down because we have the support and trust of the 86% of the Turkish population. We are fighting for, one, all kinds of discriminations. We want equality between women and men. It's a human rights issue. It's a necessity. Two, the constitutional rights of the 100-year-old republic we have built with women and men. Three, we are fighting for younger generations to live in a safe environment where they do not even have to consider about the problems caused by this patriarchy. And we will achieve our goals sooner or later. Last but not least, smart action is important, and it is great to know women are not alone. Therefore, we are here today. Exchange of information and showing solidarity among NGOs, institutions, and people around the world is key. In the name of BPW Turkey, I would like to thank BPW Europe, who has taken immediate action to demonstrate solidarity. Thanks to our European coordinator, Anu, past European coordinator, Pinella, representative of BPW to European Women Lobby, Emily, and all our European presidents for supporting our case at the European level. Of course, special thanks to the president of BPW Poland, Kasia, and our esteemed panelists from Poland and Turkey, who supported us to organize this panel in such short notice, and all others who are participating today. And I also would like to thank Aslıhan, the Turkish coordination in European Women Lobby, for all the work they are doing to reverse the withdrawal and take time for moderating our panel. It means a lot. Thanks to all members of BPW clubs. We are so grateful to you all because it's great to know that we are united by the same values. I really hope that today's panel will inspire you and remind us once again of necessity of continuous action to empower women and girls for the future generations, as our organization has been doing so for 90 years. Thank you. And now I give Aslıhan the floor. And Aslıhan, the floor is yours. Thank you very much. Good success to all our panelists from Poland and Turkey.
Thank you very much, Selda. Good evening, everyone. I would also like to start our panels. We have two panels tonight, by thanking the organizers, BPW Turkey, Poland, and Europe. We are here today thanks to their organization and our distinguished speakers. Of course, we have experts here today from Turkey, from Poland, and all over Europe, as if I'm not mistaken, through the membership of BPW. I think this is the right moment to stress women's solidarity, women organizations' solidarity from different backgrounds, working on gender equality, working on women's employment, women in professional work life. So it is very important today that we come together under our priorities and our discussion on Istanbul Convention. I'm, as mentioned by Selda, I'm EU representative and board member of European Women's Lobby Coordination for Turkey. And also I'm from Women's Coalition Turkey. And we have been from the very beginning, before even since summertime. I should maybe give this short intro on that. Since summertime, actually, since it was the officials in Turkey have been speaking out loud on the ideas of withdrawal, we have been, women's movement in Turkey have not been sleeping. I mean, we have been trying to, create awareness on all grounds at the national and, international and European level. And finally, one night at the midnight on 19th of March, during the UNCSW of 65, during the month of International Women's Day celebrations, during the day that the president of Turkey was actually meeting with the European Commission President von der Leyen, he at that midnight very much himself, officially published the decision on gender equality. It was an attack on human rights. So I'm very grateful to all of you for being here, and I'm looking forward to a very fruitful discussion. I would just like to also raise some ground rules. We will have two panels. On the first panel, we are going to discuss the ratification and implementation and the withdrawal discussion and the real decision for Turkey and also for Poland with our experts. And in the second panel, we are going to more focus on the European Union perspective, Council of Europe perspective, with a more political assessment from our experts, as well as how women's movement on the ground has been reflecting and what is the future aspects that we can expect on the withdrawal decision or the Istanbul, on how we can uphold Istanbul Convention. During both, between two panels, we're going to have a Q&A session. So if you would like to raise questions, please try to use chat box as actively as possible. You can share your comments, you can raise your questions at the chat box. And during the hopefully like 15 minutes 15 minutes Q&A sessions, we will be raising those questions to our panelists. And if we have still more time, we will be looking forward to hear your voices too. So without taking more time of yours, I would like to start the first panel. We'll have 4 speakers in our first panel. We have Associate Professor Dr. Göknur Akçada. She's the Director of Women's Studies Research Center at Nişantaşı University and member of BPW Istanbul. We have Dr. Monika Kisinevich. I'm so sorry for the pronunciation, Monika. She's a journalist at Sidem Ersh from Poland, former Deputy Director of Equality Office and main negotiator of Istanbul Convention in Poland. We also have Professor Dr. Sibel İnceoğlu. I have the gratitude and I appreciate having her here. She was my professor in the university in Marmara Law Faculty. It is an honor. Sibel İnceoğlu, she is the head of the Constitutional Department of Law at Marmara University Faculty of Law. And we have lawyer Hande Yayla Oğuz Ülgen. She is the partner at Yak Law Company, member of the BPW Istanbul. So I would like to give the floor to each speaker for 10 minutes to have their reflections. But first, according to the, our order of the content, I may also like to ask maybe to mute yourself. Thank you very much for making attention to that. So I would like to give the floor first to Associate Professor Dr. Göknur Akçada. She will be actually stressing the official process of Istanbul Convention, how it was, signed and ratified in Turkey, and with an overview of the problems experienced during the process and on the ground. Please, the floor is yours, Mrs. Akçada.
Hi, everybody. Aslı, we have met once again thanks to this meeting. We had first come across in Belgium when I had implementing a project in 2014, I think so, for the Turkish women living abroad project. I appreciate your amiable works. It's great to have successful women like you abroad. Yes, I was able to participate in the process management of Turkey, and I have knowledge of the international process and the documents while I worked for the Turkish ministry. It was a grateful experience for me. I also experienced how difficult it is to make progress in the women affairs. I was able to observe how and why the process that initially had begun in a positive way was deviated. In this panel, I would like to share some of my comments in brief with you regarding the Istanbul Convention. Let me start from the recent developments. In 2020 and 2021, we observed that some conservative administrations and governments tended to interpret the convention in line with their ideological perspectives, either when they signed or after approved it, by addressing their reservations or declarations. You know, Turkey was the first member state of the Council of Europe to ratify the convention in 2012. The convention was opened for signature during the Turkish chairpersonship, 10 years ago. Regarding the distance covered, the annual report for Turkey was also announced by Grevio. As a person who knows this process, deeply regret Turkey's decision to withdraw from the convention. First of all, it should be said that Turkey's withdrawal is a disappointment also from the point of view of our common rules-based multilateral order, which is the basis for all human rights protection. With the withdrawal from the convention, the message given to the Turkish community and the image created in the international area has not been positive. This situation has been encouraging for those who view women as inferior in society. The Turkish institutions had already made a headway for this issue through there was a problem in terms of mentality and giving credence to it. However, it turned into a constantly challenged convention, particularly the legal cases in which the men were allegedly victimized and unfairly judged became a hot topic. The positive process continued for a while after Turkey signed and approved the convention. Initially, numerous meetings were organized with other countries and the Council of Europe to promote the convention. One of Turkey's lead role, Turkey was the country that enacted the first law in line with the convention. For example, it even organized an international meeting titled Developments in Human Rights of Women in 2013, together with the Council of Europe and UN Women in the third year of convention. I think so this document for it. Yes, Mr. Stefan Füle, European Commissioner for Enlightenment, participate in this meeting too. For example, Fatma Şahin and Feride Acar Hilary Fischer, Gisladottir, Ingeborg Gisladottir, and Emine Bozkurt, Marja Roten, and many persons. And all the independent experts who wrote the convention and high-level officers come to the meeting. I'm going on. 1 year before, in 2012, Turkey hosted CEDAW, the 30-year meeting titled 30-year Struggle for Empowerment of Women in Istanbul. Another example is that Turkey Ministry, UN Women and UNFPA organized a global activity ending the violence against women, accelerating progressing meeting in Istanbul. 30 to 40 ministers of other countries attended this activity. As you can see, Turkey played the leading role in this process. Now we can see different developments and differences compared with the past. Some circles have shorted out some parts of the convention to discredit it before the public and talk on TVs against it. Through the process seemed to be going on in a positive direction until 2016. It is not possible to claim that the signatory of the convention Delhi enforced it, especially the developments occurred in and after 2016 are highly criticized and discussed. Through those who would enforce the convention were trained, it turned out that some parties were unwilling to enforce it. The Istanbul Convention was particularly criticized, stressing that the suspension or perpetrator from residence is not in accordance with the Turkish family structure and culture. All the top officials assigned were biased against the convention. To some extent, they questioned why some articles had not been objected to. Pursuant to the provisions of the convention, Turkey has no right to make a reservation for any articles of the convention as long as it is enforced. Besides, the convention forbids to make reservations against the special provisions to which Turkey objects. The authorized parties who regard the issue superficially through their political perspective acted with prejudice, didn't give correct information to the public, and buckled under the minor pressure groups. Some pressure groups, and particularly the religious group, have influenced the political decision-making mechanism and voiced at every opportunity that the convention doesn't fit for Turkey. And they have been able to succeed, unfortunately. We observe that these groups concentrate their objections on two main aspects. They defend the hierarchy between women and men as produced by the patriarchal structure. They support their ideas with the religious references. In this context, they claimed that the cultural approaches may damage the traditional family structure. They took an aversion to the term sexual orientation, claiming that it would normalize homosexuality. In the statement about the Istanbul Convention, it was stated that the convention was manipulated. However, it is known that the convention has been manipulated by misinformation in different circles. On the contrary, there were groups that manipulated the convention years after it was signed with objections consisting of prejudice, excessive comments, and conspiracy theories. Another problem is the discourse in which they claim that the law number 6284 would be sufficient. Therefore, an convention is not needed. This law has some loopholes. True, it was prepared in line with the Istanbul Convention. When Turkey withdrawn from the convention, one of the claims to justify this withdrawal that Turkey didn't need any international convention because it has already some national laws protecting women against the domestic violence. But it is well known that the current laws are less comprehensive than the Istanbul Convention. Another issue uttered by the officials that some European countries didn't enforce the convention through they signed it. It is seen that the ultra-conservative groups in Europe have constantly been trying to weaken the women's rights in recent years. COVID-19 complicated this situation more. It is encouraging that the different groups, including the NGOs and some influential figures who support the government, have objections and criticize against the withdrawal of Turkey from the convention. Taking this condition into consideration, I suppose that the political power has a tendency to keep on enforcing the law number 6284. But I observe that there is no any sign to reinforce the convention in short term. It is important to protect the law number 6284. True, it has some loopholes. In the draft report of the Parliamentary Assembly of the Council of Europe, it is stated that the termination of the convention falls within the scope of national sovereignty. It has been stated that this situation is alarming in terms of democratic progress. The view was expressed that the termination of the convention weakens multilateral cooperation within the Council of Europe for Turkey. As a result, Turkey's decision to leave the convention is a feedback to the collective effort to eliminate violence against women and girls and to fight against domestic violence. We hope that we can see positive developments in the upcoming period in Turkey and in other European countries. Thank you for listening to me.
Thank you very much, Göknur Hanım. I would actually like to make a very short comment here. I think with all the shared information you have shared with us on the process, on how it was, implemented, ratified, and actually presented at the EU level or European level through meetings, shows Turkey has actually never had a real political perspective on women's rights or gender-based violence. So, I mean, it was maybe we have signed the convention, but it has never been really a political, strategically, politically in the agenda of the government. So we have been stressing that as women's movement in Turkey, women's issues are a political issue. It's not a social issue, it's not a cultural issue, it's a political issue. And it is necessary to have this ownership at all levels. And if you don't have the ownership, and if you can sign a convention, such an important international human rights convention, you can feel that you can easily withdraw from that because it wasn't really being sincerely adopted or followed through strategies. So I would just like to give the floor. Thank you very much, Ms. Akçada, for your contribution. I would like to give the floor to Monica for her intervention. We would like to hear from her on the history of the negotiations at the Council of Europe level and through Poland's experience and using the pandemic as a source of restricting women's rights in Poland. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Monica, and I will try to use my thumb when you have 2 minutes left. If you would have a look at me, then you will see that how much time you have. Thank you. The floor is yours.
Okay, thank you very much. Good evening, ladies. Let me begin with few words about Poland in general. I don't know how much you know about Poland, but let me just emphasize that Poland is a member of European Union since 2004. And as a Turkey, which is a country who wants to become a member of European Union since I think the 90s, you already know that the country before accession has to adjust their law accordingly to the requirements of the accession. And the most important are directives, which are obligatory. You have to implement the provisions into your national law. If not, you pay fines. But in this case, if you don't join European Union. So even though Poland is quite traditional and conservative and very Catholic country comparing to Turkey, we had to implement gender equality provisions into our law before 2004, before the joining of European Union. And the most important law was enlargement of labor code in terms of protection of maternity and prohibition of sexual harassment, etc. Some basic law. Not, I wouldn't say it was a feminist revolution in the Polish law, obviously. The feminist NGOs were criticizing this because it was not enough for them, but it was minimum we had to implement into our national law. So in 2004, we joined European Union. Gradually, there was some other laws following that enlargement of labor code. And in 2008, the civic platform, let's say, central right party become governing power. Agnieszka, who will be speaking after me, was my minister at that time from this party. But the previous party was far right party. So you have to know that we joined European Union with leftist government, which at least on the agenda had some feminist ideas. Then we had far right, and then we had central right. So it was not stable in terms of progressing women's rights. The women's rights were high, then down, and then a little bit up when we started to discuss the Council of Europe Convention to implement as a country. And I was involved in this process since the very beginning because I joined the government in 2004. So I was, let's say, I was growing up as a civil servant and also feminist because I joined from academia, which PhD from gender mainstreaming. Nobody knew about that, trust me, that time. Even in the academia in 2004, there was not many feminist scholars, actually. So my mentor was Anne Snito. Maybe some of you know the name from New School for Social Research in New York. She was actually teaching me about gender because I didn't study gender studies because that time when I was studying, there was none in Poland. So young civil servant, feminist at heart. And in 2006, I started to participating in the first working meetings at the level of Council of Europe. And it was preliminary meetings, not binding. The Council of Europe was asking 47 member states, including civil society and academia, not only governments, if there is a need for one comprehensive instrument to combat and prevent and combat gender-based violence against women. And it was not very easy. From between 2006 and 2008, there was several meetings. Since the very beginning, Vatican and Russian Federation were against. Poland was so-so from between 2006 and 2008. I remember I even had a statement quoting that the Catholic Church in Poland is a very strong supporter of fighting domestic violence, because a lot of nuns actually run shelters for battered women, or they were before. So in 2008, when the CAVIO was established, it was already 2 years after Council of Europe launched European-wide campaign. Do you remember this black and white, very disturbing video? It was distributed in all member states to actually promote the idea that women are the 90% of victims of all violence happening at home, in the family, and in general. So in 2008, when I started participating as an official from the Polish government in the CAVIO, meaning the structure committee working on the convention, there was also a lot of obstacles in the beginning coming from countries like Russian Federation and some other Russian influenced post-Soviet republics. I remember Turkey as a great example of actually a leader, because the Turkish delegate was one of the most active in all the meetings. And almost every meeting there was some kind of media coverage from Turkey, from some remote villages, from Kurdish remote villages where the traditional harmful practices were happening. So I remember the Turkey as a candidate to access European Union. They really, as a country, was fighting very hard to change the perception of Turkey as a country where women can be buried alive because of 15 years old girl was dating a man without a marriage. So yes, the negotiations were really hard, but we managed to write draft of the convention just in 2 years. And then the last stage before the adoption of the convention by the Committee of Ministers in Strasbourg, it was also not easy. Actually, the ministerial level was the hardest, because Russia was again trying to destroy all the work of several years before. But as you know, we succeeded, and convention was open to sign. And as was mentioned in my the previous speech, Turkey was one of the first countries to sign. And in 2013, the convention was already operational. And in 2015, it entered into force in Poland after several stages. Agnieszka probably will describe better than me, just few sentences. So during the time, the convention was negotiated at the level of the working level. In Poland, we had several changes in the law, which helped to make the progress of implementing convention into Polish law much easier. It was actually much easier because European directive on minimum standards for protection of victims of any violence was proceed almost the same time. So the directive came into force in 2012, and it fulfilled several articles from the Istanbul Convention, which helped us a lot. But during the signature process, we didn't have a provision on the rape because we had an outdated law that time. But this also probably Agnieszka will say, because it was her big success as a minister, because she went against all the male ministers and members of the parliament that time. It was really, really precision work as a minister, I would say. And but still, to sum up, because probably I can go on and on about the whole process, because even though we sign and ratify as a Poland the convention, still our law, even though we are a member of European Union and obviously CEDAW and all the rest international binding standards, our law is not even, I would say, 70% adjusted to the convention. Yet some conservative members of the parliament and the government wants Poland to withdraw from the whole process like Turkey. And still to this day, we don't have, for example, definition of economic violence. Our law on restraining order was just recently updated, yet it's not still 100% as the convention requires. Probably about this we'll talk about later. Our lawyer from our free, because I'm not a lawyer, so I would not be comfortable discussing these details, but our previous government is ultra-nationalist, far-right, I would say very radical, like in Hungary, Turkey. And our Minister of Justice announced the change of restraining order provision. He said in press conference in public that we no longer need a convention because we just changed this restraining order law. And he said that our law is now better than the convention, which is obviously not true if you're a lawyer. But it was one of the first declarations that Poland is actually doing some public or official attempt to withdraw from the convention. And you probably are familiar with the name of World Family Forum, or Opus Dei, the international movement against promoting the conservative agenda at the level of European institutions. So in Poland, the name of organization is Ordo Juris, and they, as an NGO, because they are registered officially as some kind of legal NGO, juridical NGO, they presented draft law in the parliament, which is actually being proceed in the subcommittees, which is really like a first step to officially withdraw from the convention. And the law was same as Turkey. The law was introduced during pandemic, during the time when the average percentage of increase of domestic violence or violence against women online and offline, as any statistic from any NGO shows, is increasing up to 30%. They were not ashamed to introduce this law into parliament, and the law basically is entitled Yes for Family, but under the when you read the law, it actually says no to the convention, just to be brief. And this was another step before there was another incident which was widely covered by international media. Probably you've heard in Turkey that our constitutional court said that abortion is not legal in Poland. Also, I will not discuss the details of the law because in Poland, generally, there is no abortion on demand. There is legal abortion on free conditions. And the constitutional court said that even if there is a danger, there is a threat of a death of a mother, still abortion cannot be done. So it is, I cannot even express myself how violates this is for gender equality, human rights, and women's rights in Poland. But this was first step that the far right government was not ashamed to actually destroy all the feminist, or not even feminist, the gender mainstreaming process of implementing basic human rights and gender equality law into Polish system. So as I said before, the central right government introduced most of the gender equality law, which another government which came after that in power, the nationalists, the radicals, they destroyed almost everything, including the fact that, for example, equality body, which I was deputy director of and Agnieszka was a minister of, is actually no longer existing, not even on a paper. There is one single person in the whole, not even department, it's even the ministry, they even changed the name of the ministry for Ministry of Family. And it's one person, and before it was more than 50 persons working on gender equality in Poland. So you can believe how from high up on feminist agenda, we actually we hit the bottom, I would say. So if even pandemic, when the violence increases, and not only offline, but also online, and maybe some of you were listening to the Council of Europe celebration of 10 years of anniversary of the convention. They were saying that countries like Cyprus just recently, during pandemic, they implemented the law against sexism because they noticed as a government that there is an increase of violence, and Turkey is withdrawing convention and Poland is doing actually some small steps toward the same. So
that's the other way around. Yes.
Yes, exactly. So sorry for being emotional in the end, but this is really like destroying all my personal hard work.
Of course.
It's like my child is being taken from me. So I really cannot really stand this. So I look forward for women in Turkey to also demand their rights so we can unite and do something about it.
Definitely. Thank you. Thank you very much, Monica. I mean, I will be happy to give you the floor with your experience again during the Q&A part 2. It looks very much similar, actually. I would like to highlight 3 things from what you have said. I mean, it is a very similar journey that we have been going through. Thank you so much for your hard work, first of all, with you and with all of your colleagues. And please don't give up on anything. I think it is, we call it like a global strike of women. We are upholding the Istanbul Convention all together. We are in this all together. I would like to highlight that. You mentioned Russia, the impact of Russia. Russia has been some Eastern European countries and Russia and Vatican, Holy See, they have been, working against Istanbul Convention for a long while. And this is also shows this anti-gender, background politics. They are getting stronger, but we are also getting stronger on the other hand. This is one thing. You have mentioned this family, ministry problem in Poland. We had the same as well. Since 2011, we lost, our ministry with the name on women, and we are considering women always within the perspective of family roles and family policies and so forth. So it is a very much similar ground too. Thank you very much for your, intervention. Now I would like to immediately give the floor to Professor Sibel İnceoğlu to discuss further on the a bit more legal aspects on the on Turkey's withdrawal decision and the impact on the constitution of Turkey. Thank you very much. The floor is yours.
Thank you, Aslıhan. I would like to thank BPW's kind invitation, and I greet the dear members of the association and all other participants. In my speech, I will try to make a brief constitutional assessment of the President's decision to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention. When we examine the compliance of the procedure with the Constitution, serious problems are observed. In the constitutional history of Turkey, the authority regarding international conventions has never been left to executive alone. In the first constitution of the Republic, dated 1924, which has the characteristics of a government system based on the supremacy of the parliament, the power to ratify international treaties is left to the monopoly of the assembly only. When we come to the 1961 Constitution, this authority has been transformed into executive approval under the supervision of the legislature, but not left to the monopoly of the executive. The 1982 Constitution, which is the currently in force, also with some exceptions, of course, provided a division of power between the executive and the legislature in terms of international treaties, and did not completely leave the issue to the authority of any government. Therefore, the two organs use their power together in this matter, and it is set forth that the executive will exercise their approval power under the parliamentary supervision. In 2017, the constitution was amended, and a new regime called the Turkish type presidency, which was generated version of the presidential regime was adopted. the president's role in the Turkish type presidential regime has become stronger than that of the former president or even the former council of ministers in the old system. However, the president of the republic has not been given a new power in terms of international conventions. The provisions of the Constitution on international conventions are the same today as the 1982 Constitution was originally. Therefore, we cannot talk about an increase in authority in the new system on this issue. Moreover, in countries with a democratic presidential regime, it is observed that the balancing role of the parliament against the executive is preserved in terms of international conventions. In addition to that, the Istanbul Convention to prevent violence against women is not an ordinary, simple international agreement. It is neither an implementation treaty, which is exempt from legislative oversight, nor can it be viewed as an ordinary treaty providing economic, commercial, or military cooperation. The convention, Istanbul Convention, guarantees human rights in general and many rights of women and children in particular, of course. Therefore, according to our constitution, it is one of the treaties that must be approved depending on the law of approval of the assembly and has the force of law. In addition, since it is related to fundamental rights and freedoms, in accordance with the last paragraph of Article 90 of the Constitution, in case of conflict with the law, it is obligatory to take as basis the Convention on Human Rights, not the law. In other words, conventions regarding human rights have priority over the law. On the other hand, Istanbul Convention, which was accepted unanimously by the assembly representing the whole nation, is intended to be terminated with the decision of a person elected by only half of the voters. However, as a result of the unanimous acceptance of the assembly, this international treaty has turned into a social contract. The denouncement of the convention that reflects such a consensus with a decision of only one person is also contrary to the principle of democratic rule of law in the second article of the Constitution. In addition, no presidential decree or decision can produce a consequence that abolishes the rights recognized by a legal act enacted by Parliament. Since such an attempt would mean entering the area where the president is not allowed to make a regulation pursuant to Article 104 of the Constitution, it is contrary to the Constitution, and it also contradicts the constitutional provision which states rights and freedoms can only be restricted by law enacted in assembly. Since the obligations imposed by the Istanbul Convention on the state reflect the concrete aspects of the positive obligations of the state included in the 5th article of the Constitution, the abolition of these obligations without reasonable justification contradicts with the 5th article of the Constitution. I should add that the 1st article of the Act on Prevention of Violence Against Women refers to to the Istanbul Convention and orders the law to be implemented in accordance with the convention. This provision of the Act is still in force. The content of any law cannot be changed depending on the decisions of the executive body, and no decree can authorize the executive body to make such a decision. Granting such an authority would be contrary to the constitutional principle of non-transferability of the basic legislative power. It has also been argued that the decision of the president is based on customary practices. Those who proposed this claim stated that although there was no law approving the announcement of the treaty from the parliament, international conventions had already been terminated by the decisions of the Council of Ministers or the President. However, the examples given to support this argument do not fully confirm the thesis in question. All of the past examples given to justify the said decision of President either have the implicit approval of the parliament or the treaty has become de facto unenforceable. That's why justified the withdrawal from the treaty. I talk more about the Turkish constitution's provisions related terminating treaties. And I also would like to mention the legal regulations on this issue if we have more time. Aslan?
2 more minutes, hocam.
2 more minutes, okay. The procedure of ratifying international conventions was regulated in the law dated 1963 on authorization of the president to make certain treaties. However, although the law regulated the power of the assembly at the stage of ratifying the treaties, it was silent regarding the constitutional authority of the assembly for the withdrawal from the treaties. It only included the power of the executive body to terminate treaty. In its stated form, the law dated 1963 was actually contrary to the constitution, but remained in force as opposition parties neglected to apply to the Constitutional Court on this matter. However, as I have just mentioned, this executive power has never been implemented in a manner contrary to the Constitution by ignoring the legislative act of the Assembly. After the transition to the Turkish-type presidential government system, this provision in the 1963 law was abolished with the presidential decree number 9. The stated power given to the executive on withdrawal from the treaty has been transferred exactly to decree number 9. The procedural regulation on which this presidential decision on the denouncement of the Istanbul Convention is based, became the 3rd article of the decree number 9. But in the complaint filed by the main opposition party in the constitution, it was again neglected to claim the unconstitutionality of the said article. Since a problem similar to the situation we are in probably has never been experienced before. That's why they neglected, I think. However, the Article 104 of the Constitution regarding presidential decrees provides that President of the Republic may issue presidential decrees on matters regarding executive power. Therefore, It is contrary to the article to regulate all the procedure for ratifying and denouncing international treaties, which is an issue both legislator and the executive are authorized together. In addition, Article 104 prohibits making a regulation on fundamental rights and freedom by decree. Therefore, the decree which enables the termination of rights recognized in our domestic law by the Istanbul Convention is also in violation of the aforementioned article in this respect. As a result, I should summarize that both the President's decision and the presidential decree, which is the basis of this decision, are in violation of Article 2, 5, 7, 13, 90, and 104 of the Constitution. I hope I haven't exceeded my speaking time too much.
Thank you.
I thank you all for listening to me.
Thank you. I hope to get back to you during the Q&A session too. Joel, thank you very much for your intervention. I mean, after listening to our professor, it also makes very clear the decision was one person's decision, and it was totally against the constitution of Turkey. It was against, it is still against the Pacta sunt servanda. It is against the principle of parallelism in procedures. It is against many principles in law, but actually it is also very much against the societal consensus. It was never discussed in the society the way it was news to everyone. It was news to political parties. It was not discussed in the Grand Assembly either. So it is. It makes it very clear why we have been discussing Turkey's rule of law and democracy battle on many years now. So now it is very much visible on women's rights and gender equality issue, how it is attacked actually. Thank you very much for your contribution, Sibel and Joel. Now I would like to give the floor, at last but not least, to Hande Yayla Oğuz İlgen. She will be giving further information on what happens to the applied law, the national law 6284. Our speakers have mentioned. So this is the national law which was implemented thanks to Istanbul Convention. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Hande.
Thank you very much, Aslıhan Hanım, and all the participants for this opportunity. Yes, in line with the current circumstances in Turkey, it's very highly likely that the Istanbul Convention, that the withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention will become effective in July. And then at that point, the concern of Turkish women is what sort of legal atmosphere we will face with following this withdrawal, following the enactment of the withdrawal decision, what sort of protection they will have. As you know that Turkey was the first state member who signed the Istanbul Convention without any reservation, and after this ratification, the law, legislation, the called law to protect family and to prevent the family. I'm sorry, to protect family and to prevent violence against women has been entered into force in 2012, and still it is in force. And actually, this law has been drafted in line with the Istanbul Convention and replaced the previous law, which is only related to the protection of the family and only focused on married women. So therefore, this law, the current applicable law, is an important achievement for the Turkish woman. And in order to explain our rights that we can use following the enactment of the withdrawal, the decision by the government, I would like to focus on main differences between Istanbul Convention and the current local law. As you know, the Istanbul Convention includes three types of main violence: domestic violence, violence against women, and gender-based violence. In terms of domestic violence, the local law, Istanbul Convention very explicitly refers to parents, regardless of being married. However, if you look at the local law, such a clear wording does not exist. However, in practice and as a matter of law, it is accepted that the parents, that the parties of such relationship are also within the scope of the local law. In terms of the violence against women, the concept of gender is not included in the local law at all, unfortunately. However, the definition of gender in the Istanbul Convention, which says that any violence directed against a woman because she is a woman is included in the local law. And the reason of excluding the concept of gender from the local law is to veil the political essence on violence against women, actually, because accepting or including the gender concept in the law would cause that the patriarchy or the gender roles within the community would be questioned, and the authorities, the official authorities, the state, are required to establish politics in relation to in order to eliminate the negative consequences of this patriarchy. And of course, this is a matter which is not accepted by the government, by the current government. The violence has been broadly drafted in the local law, like in the Istanbul Convention. It includes psychological, economic, sexual, financial violence. And local law also includes the concept of intentional conduct of repeatedly stalking, which is very important. And currently, most of the women who are subject to this crime are entitled to benefit from the provision in relation to the intentional conduct of repeatedly stalking. The victim is the definition of the victim in the local law is again in compliance with Istanbul Convention, and it covers any person who is subject to danger or would be subject or at risk of violence, or any person who is affected by violence or would be affected by violence. In terms of its definition, the victim definition in the local law, we understand that the law is applied to everybody without any differences in terms of their sexual life, sexual orientation, marital status, lifestyle. But as you remember, the reason of the government's withdrawal decision from the Istanbul Convention is that Istanbul Convention is normalizing homosexuality. But if you look at the victim definition in the local law, we understand that the victim covers any type of people who are subject to any type of violence. So therefore, the LGBTI people, I mean, from the legal perspective, it may be alleged that the LGBTI people are also covered by the local law. So we understand that the alleged reason of the government for the withdrawal from Istanbul Convention is not correct. This is a good indication of the governmental approach in terms of the application of the Istanbul Convention, actually. The convention imposes four really? Oh, okay. Four obligations: protection, prevention, and execution of policies. Which one should I explain within 2 minutes? I try to decide. I'm so sorry. So okay, for the difference, the main important point is that the government, I mean the local law, that the local law does not include any provision, detailed provision like the Istanbul Convention in terms of the establishing politics, long-term politics, preventive measures, because in Turkey preventive measures are taken only case by cases. But if you look at the Istanbul Convention, the preventive measures should be taken before the violence, such as creating policies in terms of for increase of the awareness on gender equality, cooperation with human rights institutions. But local law is very, very limited, and all the preventive measures are case by case basis, because the government doesn't has the tendency that the violence cases are single cases. They do not create any structural problems in the community. There are also protective and investigative measures in local law and in Istanbul Convention. They are mostly the same on the paper, but again in practice we have very, very huge problems in terms of their implementation. With or without Istanbul Convention, the main problem of the Turkish women and LGBTI people are the implementation of this law, of the convention and the local law together. The cases of violence are not effectively investigated, integrated and coordinated policies are not established or not properly followed. The measures, the local law includes lots of measures maybe, but in practice, again, they do not implement it. And finally, in 2019, the government has announced a policy which should be in line with the Istanbul Convention and Grevio reports. That means the policies should be very detailed. However, if you look at this policy, we see that again the family is very important for the community, and in the preamble of the policy it is stated that the core structural element of the community is the family, and therefore it should be protected. Again, the police or the jurors or the official authorities do not conduct their duties very well. Therefore, the NGOs and certain people publish the pictures pictures on social media. Again, in the policy, it is stated that publishing photos or videos are forbidden. And the reason of it is breach of confidentiality. So, in summary, if you look at all these items together, we can see very easily the approach of the government is not in favor of the women's rights, or they do not aim to prevent the violence against women. It's quick.
It was quick.
I tried to summarize.
Yeah, thank you very much. But I mean, I would like to give the floor to you all, actually, to all speakers during the Q&A. So if you would have further remarks, please keep.
Okay. Thank you.
Keep them. Thank you very much. So I will give you the floor once again. So I mean, thank you very much, Hande. I think it really explains how it is important to not only uphold Istanbul Convention, but also the national legislation who backs it up. But also it also shows the real intentions of the government, all the policymakers at all levels. That, I mean, if there is no ownership on women's rights or gender equality, then they keep, not implementing on the ground, even if they sign or withdraw or they have this national legislation. It is, I think, important to underline Istanbul Convention when it is translated into Turkish. It was translated. We didn't translate domestic violence. We translated it to family. Violence in family. So it is. There's a big, perception different. I mean, how domestic violence is understood in Turkey, and it wasn't. It was violence in family. So it is. I just wanted to stress that. Thank you very much to everyone. But now I would like to open the floor to any questions or comments from our participants. Would anyone like to have the floor to share their views? I cannot see. I try to go to gallery view. I was saying, Katarzyna is a thumbs up. Okay, if there are no comments, I would like to give once again the floor to any of our panelists, because I'm so sorry to cut their speeches, but maybe they would like to have one more comment or burning issue they would like to raise. And our participants can raise their hands or write in the chat box if they have a question, please. The floor is yours, Monica. Maybe we can start with you. If you have any comments to share further.
I just want to say one thing. The previous speaker said that the Turkish government withdrew from the convention based on not accurate information on what actually the scope of the convention is. And I want to say that in Poland, the NGO, the legal NGO called Ordo Juris, who advocates for withdrawing of Poland from the convention, they also lie. And they have a website, and you can even say, they mention, for example, my name, and they quote me, and they lie, even on the website. So they not only misinterpreted the law, but they also saying not accurate information on even past happenings in the past. So it's really worrying that there are some actions taken in Brussels, for example, because they have a office in Brussels, but the landlord, I think they lost a few times the location. So there are some steps against this organization, but in Poland, they are getting actually bigger because they actually got a grant from the state to open up the university course on human rights. So it's really getting serious, even though they lie and they miss the truth. So
thank you very much, Monica, for sharing. I would like to give the floor to Katarzyna before I give the floor to Sibel İnceoğlu, because I have a raised hand. Please, the floor is yours, Katarzyna, for your comment.
Thank you very much. It was extremely interesting to hear all presentations and to see similarities between Poland and Turkey in terms of perception of Istanbul Convention and the violence against women. And I wanted to ask you in terms of translation of the convention about the term gender, because obviously you know about all these controversies around this term, and how did you tackle it in the Turkish language version of convention? Was it translated, or you have your own term for that? How do you use it? Because in Poland, it's always a struggle with gender. I mean, before it was not that difficult. I mean, because it was not that controversial. So, for instance, in the statute of the International Criminal Court, where gender is mentioned as well, it was, saved in original version in Polish, but in Polish translation of the Istanbul Convention, we have sex is, it's like the biological sex, and the gender is like a socio-cultural sex. It's translated into Polish. So my question is, how do you deal with that?
Thank you very much.
Thanks.
I will just ask if any of the speakers would like to reply. Sibel İnceoğlu or Hande, would you like to reply to this, or I can interfere? Hocam siz gelmek istedim. Buyurun.
I didn't understand the question.
I will just share my comment, and then maybe it will be more understood. Katarzyna, the thing is, in this translation, in the name confusion was actually, they don't recognize domestic violence because they do not recognize LGBTI plus community and the gender.
Yeah.
So that's why they, violence in the family, they translated something like that in Turkish, aile içi şiddet, violence in the family. But since for many, we have this gender equality terminology in Turkish. It was set for many years, recognized for many years now. But recently, for the last couple of years, before this withdrawal decision, actually, the government and those certain groups opposing women's rights and gender equality in the society, they have been attacking gender equality, the terminology itself. So even the government and the authorities have started to move the term gender equality from the which is an existing terminology in Turkish, toplumsal cinsiyet, eşitliği. So they have started to remove it from the Ministry of Education's, documents, from the directives, from certain regulations. So there is a direct attack on gender equality terminology itself. Please, if any of the speakers would like to comment on that, I wouldn't like to speak more than them. But okay, I mean, I think if it is clear, I think we replied to your question. But now I would like to give the floor to Sibel İnceoğlu. Hocam, if you would like to have any comments, further remarks, then I'm gonna.
Okay, I just can say, I mean, the struggle, the fight is continuing in Turkey. So many women, some associations and some bar associations brought a suit before the Council of State in order to nullify the president's decision to withdraw from the Istanbul Convention. So the Council of State can make two types of interpretation. In the first possibility, the Council may consider that the presidential decree, which is the basis of the president's decision, interferes with the legislative sphere and restricts fundamental rights and freedoms and is unconstitutional. In this case, he will make an application to the Constitutional Court for annulment of the decree, stating that Article 3 of the Presidential Decree number 9 constitutes a violation of the Constitution. After the Constitutional Court determines this apparent contradiction, the Council of State may nullify the decision of the President. In other words, it will shift the responsibility on the Constitutional Court. This road is quite long and time-consuming. Another way the Council of State can adopt is to interpret Decree number 9 in accordance with the Constitution, considering that the decree cannot regulate the power of the legislature. The Council of State may determine that it may have regulated only the area outside the authority of the Assembly. And it can directly apply the Constitution with regard to the legislative power. So the Council of State may decide that the decision contradicts both the decree and directly Constitution. If this interpretation is adopted, faster results, I mean, quicker results can be obtained, since the Council of State can directly nullify the decision of the President of the Republic without involving the Constitutional Court. We are waiting for that. I mean, we are waiting the decision of the Council of State in Turkey right now.
Impatiently.
Yes, impatiently.
Exactly. Thank you very much, Professor. I would like to give the floor to Irina, Dr. Irina Arsentieva. Please, the floor is yours. Please.
A very important question, and I can but say that from the point of view of mental genetics, let's imagine that very good laws are adopted everywhere, but in families there will be violence, there will be neglection of women's rights, so everything will be the same because DNA, we are communicating, the DNAs are communicating, not laws. Laws will not help us. Unfortunately, they are very good, very good. So we know about this. There is conscious, so these rules and these panels and very, very good laws, very good. But subconscious, the DNA of every woman consists of 4 generations. 4 generations ago, it is normal to beat, it is normal to violate, it is normal to harass, it is normal to violate, it is normal, the recording. So it must be stopped, the recording must be stopped, and there is another recording. That's why we re-educate women, and all women we deal with in Moscow, in the United States, in London, and France, and Germany, in many countries, they join us in this re-education system, and they have very good families. They have equal, the recording is the following: I'm loved, I'm respected by my boss, I am loved by my husband, I'm loved by my father, by my brother, and so the new recording. And so the life will change. We can fight, but the fighting is nullified. So no, it's very good. It's very good. We must do it. But the scientist is the following. So.
No, thank you very much for
great. Thank you.
Thank you very much for your comment. I think it's very good to hear this perspective too. I would add to that, it is also, you know, for all people in the society, that DNA should change. So both for women and men. So it is the role stereotypes and gender stereotypes, that DNA of everyone. We need to, you know, not only in the family, because now the definition of family is also changing. You know, it's not only men and women. It's with a single person, with her dog is a family. You know, with the people you choose to be family. Now you can be family. So that DNA is also changing. Thank you very much for your comment. Now I would like to give the floor to Hande, if she has one final remark, then we will go to the next panel. Sorry, thank you very much for your patience, our panelists. Thank you.
Actually, maybe I can add that the local law does not include any provision in relation to the submission of evidencing documents by the victim in order to be granted with preventive measures. Because this is very, very important deficiency in local law and in contradiction with the convention. However, this is we have overcome it with the Court of Constitution's decision. So currently the decision says that the judge is entitled to impose crucial restrictions on the perpetrator just on the basis of the victim. So this is very important, and this is very, very highly criticized by certain people, but this is very important for protection of the women and prevention of the violence, because otherwise we have to prove that the women are subject to the violence.
No, thank you very much. I'm stressing this, Hande. Giuseppe wants to give a suggestion, I think. Please. You will be the last one.
Thank you. Don't worry. A suggestion. You know that as a BPW Europe, we involved the European Parliament, the President of the European Parliament, about the Istanbul Convention issue. And the President of the European Parliament responded through the chair of the Commission on Gender Equality. And she endorsed our initiative because it is clear we have to fight about this issue. My suggestion now is this. if you recorded this event, if you prepare a minutes, you will send to the new regional coordinator, Tuanu, I think she is here, and we will send again the minutes of this event of today to this lady, and inviting also the president of Europe, the president of BPW. No, we have about 40 reality of BPW in Europe, inviting them to involve their governments. I know, for instance, that the BPW Ireland sent the first letter about this issue to 70 authorities in Ireland. We have to fight with letters, with everything. And another point important is to involve our representative at European Women Lobby, because you know that the European Women Lobby is a platform of many women's NGOs. And you understand.
I mean, I think
it is enough.
I think I could have never expected such a good transition for the second panel, because now we are going to discuss, you know, what we can do more at the European level, at the EU level and Council of Europe level and the civil society together. Thank you very much, Giuseppe. I mean, I would like
so please send the minutes.
I mean, I think Selda Hanım will be, you know, we have heard this, and I would also like to thank BPW and all the European Women's Lobby members from the moment on, you know, from 19th March to the morning, 20th of March, all the EU institutions, member states, through our membership in European Women's Lobby were triggered. They were informed, everybody started to write letters. That was a, you know, Europe-wide big solidarity has been shown thanks to the all women's movement. And I would like to once again thank BPW Europe for their support. And I agree with your suggestions. And even Ragnar, the chair of the FEM committee, she has been leading this process in the European Parliament with the President Sassoli, of course. So we will be very happy to continue. We have sent many letters to them, but this is an ongoing process, as you have stressed. Thank you very much, Giuseppe. Now, without further delay, I would like to open the second panel for further discussions and lively discussions, I hope. So we are going to discuss in this panel on the political framework at the EU and Council of Europe, how we can uphold Istanbul Convention on altogether, and of course we will like to touch upon the consequences of withdrawal in our societies, from the civil society and women's movement in particular. So I would like to give the floor immediately to Dr. Agnieszka Kozłowska. So she is the associate professor at Adam Mickiewicz University in Poznan, and she is also the former European Parliament MEP. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you very much. It's an honor to be here. I'm very happy that we may discuss Istanbul Convention. It is a topic on which I spent years, and I'm also very emotional about it. And I'm very grateful also for the idea of Giuseppe to involve European Parliament in the further discussion on that, because this public opinion, international public opinion, has really, it's a great tool in achieving our goals for women's rights. And I think that it's even more important than working on the details on provisions, because provisions are important, but the paper is very patient. And we have this experience that implementation is the only thing we lack, almost only thing we lack, because they are full of good provisions, but very seldom they are really done in practice. So like because I wrote my speech to not to exceed this time, so let me share some of my comments in this way. First of all, I'd like to underline that the Istanbul Convention is the most important international document on combating violence against women. It's a golden standard which provides a perfect roadmap for combating violence against women in every country which want to do something in the topic. And in the EU, all the members signed the convention and most ratified it, and all the countries of the Council of Europe signed it, except Russia and Azerbaijan. Istanbul Convention has its place is in strategic documents in the EU, in the European Union. In the last gender equality strategy for 2020-2025, ending violence against women is the first on the list of key principles in this document. And the Istanbul Convention is one of the documents which is very often mentioned in the European Parliament and also generally in international political environment. Why the convention is so important politically? Why it is a golden standard? What is so special in this convention? The answer is that it introduces a new perspective, gender perspective, into looking for solutions to a problem of gender-based violence. The convention says that gender-based violence is rooted on historically unequal power relations between men and women, which had led to domination over women by men and put women into subordinate position compared with men. The logic of the convention is that because violence against women is a consequence of gender inequality, we should promote women's rights and gender equality to prevent violence against women. And in my opinion, this is the most important thought of the convention and in the convention, this link between combating violence and promoting gender equality. The more gender equality, the less violence against women. This is the core of the convention. Convention says that women who are victims of violence should be protected, not because they are weaker than men, but because they are citizens, human beings, and violence against women is a violation of citizens' rights, human rights. Women should be protected not because they are weaker than men, but because they are equal to men. This idea of equality is exactly this aspect of the convention which makes it so controversial. It is why some politicians, usually from conservative political parties, far-right parties, accuse the convention of so-called gender ideology. They do not agree that gender inequality is a cause root of the violence. They do not agree that violence against women has a structural nature as gender-based violence, that women are victims of violence because they are women. They do not agree that promoting gender equality may help in prevention of violence against women. Alcohol is a reason, not gender inequality, they say. And they believe that gender equality, emancipation, is a threat for the family. So the convention is a threat for the family as it promotes gender equality. So these arguments we hear in Turkey, in Poland, in Eastern Europe countries, and also in the European Parliament from the mouth of far-right politicians from far-right parties. In Poland, during heated discussion in 2012, when we were preparing to signing the convention, opponents of the convention, conservative politicians, ministers, for example, Minister of Justice, my colleague in government, claimed that the convention accuses a religion as a reason of gender-based violence. So the convention is against religion, that it promotes homosexuality, and that it is very dangerous for the family and for our culture and for our civilization. So when they were asked in which exactly moment convention says like that, in which place, in which particular provisions, they answered that it is somewhere between lines. So it is one big manipulation about the convention. The same arguments were used by Catholic Church hierarchy, by Vatican, and Vatican was officially against the convention, which was important in Polish discussion about the convention, and which is also important now. But what was the most difficult, that this whole discussion on convention wasn't based on merit. Instead, we had discussion on so-called gender ideology, something which doesn't exist, and which was invented by conservative opponents of the convention as false argument for people who are not experts in the field. People didn't have time to study the text of the convention, so they only heard that in every church in Poland during the time when we prepare to signature, that the convention is simply dangerous for the family. Fortunately, Polish government ignored these arguments and signed the convention in 2012. I did it in behalf of Polish government. A big role in this decision played women's rights NGOs. Many women NGOs were very active then, were visible and hearable in public discussion. They participated in meetings of the parliament committees. They wrote letters to government. They met prime minister. They called government to sign the convention. They were very active. It was a key factor, together with international opinion, international pressure, which played role in Polish government's decision to sign the convention. Of course, also Monica's works, who were deputy director at the time of my office, had network in administration, also my network in the parliament, because I was at the time also a member of the parliament, and my parliamentarian colleagues knew me, they trusted me, they heard me, they were open to discussion. Everything was important. Many people were engaged, and this emotional attitude, this engagement were very important when we was at the time of discussion. As many other countries which signed the convention, Poland haven't had all the convention's provisions covered by the country law. To do that, just before signature, Poland changed, for example, or started to change provision on rape to prosecute it ex officio, not ex parte. It was difficult discussion. Monica mentioned it, and when we started the discussion in the parliament, the whole parliament was against. But when we finished, the whole parliament supported this decision and voted in favor. So really, it was a big success. And again, a big role of women NGOs, because I asked my colleague in the parliament to invite them on the committees, to give them the floor, to listen to their experience. And they did it. They listened, and their statements were very important. And in my opinion, the significance of the convention is coming not only from these provisions, but on protection of the victims and prosecution of offenders. It is important, but the most important is the part on prevention and this link, mentioned link between gender equality and gender-based violence. The more equality, the less violence. Convention is much more than another international document or professional international document on combating violence. It is a document on gender equality, the idea which experienced backlash during last years all over the world. We can see that even in the European Union, the most just and protective for minorities political organization in the world, we experience backlash when talking about women's rights. In the European Parliament, the Committee of Women's Rights and Gender Equality, FAM Committee, recalled the Istanbul Convention in tens of documents and discussion. Almost every discussion on women's rights also had a part on Istanbul Convention. Always were at least one person who mentioned this document. This committee, FAM committee, also called to European Commission, has called for years, and the Council to sign the convention as a European Union. At last, after many calls in 2017, the EU, European Union, signed the convention, but in very narrow scope, only for 2 articles, 2 provisions, in matters which are exclusive competencies of the European Union. So one is on international cooperation of police forces and prosecutors, and the second on asylum procedures. FAM committee then started to call on the Commission to widen the scope of the ratification, but till now there is no positive response. It is why the idea of new directive, which would be based on the content of the convention, is gaining in popularity, and still more and more members of the parliament are in favor of that. In the EU, the anti-gender voice comes from mainly Eastern Europe, unfortunately. Bulgaria, Czech Republic, Hungary, Latvia, Lithuania, Slovak Republic still haven't ratified the convention. The special case is our country, Poland, who ratified it in 2015, but for the last 5 years, representatives of current far-right government, populist far-right government, have threatened us with the decision of withdrawal the convention. Polish president asked Constitutional Tribunal in the convention if the convention is consistent with Polish constitution, because he doubts it. Regardless massive women protests which took place during last 3 years, the convention is still in danger in Poland. I believe that the convention is an important arms in a battle for women's rights. It is the most important political document in this field ever. Objections against the convention comes from sexism, lack of acceptance for the basic value in contemporary world, gender equality. Also from homophobia, because this homophobic arguments comes from homophobia. It is why we should do our best to say no for the idea of withdrawal of the convention, and because no for the convention means no, obviously no for women. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Agnieszka, for your comments and shared information. I think it's very important to highlight here, even if Istanbul Convention is signed by the European Union, the coverage is limited, but also the discussion continuing on the new legislation on violence, on gender-based violence at the EU level is very important, and we encourage this at the European Women's Lobby as well. So we, with all our memberships, we have been lobbying for this for a long while, and we'll continue to do so. So I would like to give the floor immediately to Katarzyna Sekowska. Dr. Katarzyna Sekowska is the director of the Poznan Human Rights Center, Institute of Law Studies of the Polish Academy of Science, and we are looking forward to her contributions. If I may, I just would like to say we have started like 15 minutes a bit late, so I hope you will be understanding us if we extend 15 minutes plus. So thank you very much for your patience and staying with us. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. I'm sorry, I have some issues with internet, so if it happens that I disappear, I will do my best to join you. So I'm very happy to be here with you, and I'm very happy to, as a Polish representative, to be here with Agnieszka and with Monika, who were, you know, mothers for the Istanbul Convention in Poland. And you can see how the specific situation is, because the convention was really, thanks to Agnieszka's and Monika's efforts, the convention was signed and ratified, I must say, in the very last moment, when the government civic platform was in power. So, you know, it was some kind of farewell gift for the Law and Justice Party, the populists that came into power in 2015. So, you know, they had something on the table that they really don't like it. They didn't want it, and but they should implement it. So what happened? My observation I based on the last 5 years when the convention was in force in Poland, and are also based on the government report to Grevio, because now the Polish report on the convention is in Grevio and it's under consideration. So we are expecting Grevio's report quite soon, and I think that it will be also very important moment for, you know, another step in the discussion about Istanbul Convention in Poland. So what I want to say, my three main observations about implementation of the Istanbul Convention in Poland is that first, the problem of violence against women is reduced to problem of domestic violence. Secondly, that we lack of any systemic approach towards violence against women in Poland, and also that there is lack of systemic response to sexual violence. So what I want to say, first of all, and I think that it's very similar what you said in respect to Turkey, that the main issue is domestic violence. And it's also even the same in Poland, that it's called family violence or violence in family. And we have law on domestic violence or family violence. I would say domestic violence, but it's family violence in Polish. So the difference is that we have had the law on domestic violence since 2005. So it was already, you know, more than 10 years when the law was pending on domestic violence, and we still have the same law now. Some things has changed because of the ratification of convention, but not that much. And the most specific thing is that this law is completely gender neutral. So it doesn't recognize that these are women who are affected by domestic violence, and no, I think that there's even no word women in that law. So even that time in 2005, when the law was drafted, there was a strong feminist movement pressure to make it more gendered, but it didn't happen. So and you will see the same attitude in the state report to Grevio, that it's mostly about domestic violence. The rest of the violence is, you know, like more episodic thing. And even I've checked that the word family in this report is mentioned 775 times, whereas the word women is like about 100. So you can see the proportions. But of course, as I said, the government declares to focus on domestic violence, but of course, in this field, there are also very serious shortcomings. Despite of this gender neutrality, we can see that, for instance, there is no definition of economic violence, and you know, this issue is really very hardly covered by the Polish law. As for the definition of the violence, it's in this act, it's quite wide, but for instance, it does not cover a former partner or former spouse of a victim, unless he or she lives with a victim, cohabits with the victim. But now the government is declaring to change the law, and they are even saying that they will change the name of this law, so that they will cover it more broadly, and it won't be the law on the family anymore. So they are really trying to say, you know, that they are doing progress. And it's, of course, it is in order to show that, you know, they are better than Polish law is better than Istanbul Convention. The second thing is that, and it's related to what I said, that there is no systemic approach towards violence against women. There is no, as for domestic violence, there is, for instance, the national program or strategy to combat it. And as for violence against women as a phenomenon, there is no strategy, there is no coordinating mechanism. All this requirement that we will find in chapter 2 of the convention to create integrated policy, coordinating policies, coordinating body, it just doesn't exist. It's only on the level related to domestic violence. And the same happens with sexual violence. And here we have also a lot of shortcomings. And as it was said, there was a great achievement at that time when we acceded to the convention, that thanks to Agnieszka's efforts, ex officio proceedings were introduced, but also some protective measures for victims for the victims of rape and sexual violence during the proceedings. That, for example, victim can be interrogated only once, and then during the trial, this testimony is, you know, played at the court in order to prevent meeting, the victim to be interrogated again and meeting the perpetrator. So there are some also. There is some progress in the field, but again, there is no policy or program addressing sexist women. There is no prevention program, and currently the government obviously focus on leveling up penalties or doing another, you know, populistic steps.
I think we may have lost Katarzyna. Maybe when she reconnects, we welcome her too. I think it is very important to stress here we have very much similarities. What happens in Poland and Turkey, it is very clear, and I think in many other member states too. But I think it is very important here to highlight the importance of institutions, European Union, state parties to the Istanbul Convention, who should continue upholding the Istanbul Convention at all levels. So this creates further responsibility on our national efforts as well as at the international level. So it is right now, I think, maybe the moment to give the floor to Ayşe Kaşıkırık. She is actually co-founder at the Global Equality and Inclusion Network and member of the BPW Istanbul as well. And because she's going to stress the role of women's NGOs and networks in Turkey for the implementation and to reverse the civic decision on the withdrawal of the Istanbul Convention. I think it's also important to highlight here the importance of not only women's movement, but also LGBTI plus movement. So we are in this together because the effects covers us all. Thank you very much. The floor is yours, Ayşe, please.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much for your kindness invitation. Hi again. I'm just summarized my conversation because I know the time was so late. I'm so sorry. I think NGOs active in preventing and combating violence against women are key factors in the implementation of the Istanbul Convention. Because under the convention, state parties have a legal obligation to recognize, encourage, and support their work and to establish effective cooperation with NGOs. That is why NGOs are major partners in monitoring and implementation of the Istanbul Convention. Unfortunately, in recent years, we are increasingly faced with very serious dangers and threats to take back our fundamental rights of women in Turkey. Withdrawal from Istanbul Convention also is a pushback against women's rights, unfortunately. At least 154 women were killed in Turkey until the beginning of 2021. Numbers that give some indication of how grave the problem of violence against women is, even with the Istanbul Convention in place. Although the overall implementation of the Istanbul Convention in Turkey is considered poor, women's NGOs and also LGBTI NGOs, networks, platforms have been very effective to push for women's rights in the country overall, around the country. The adoption of the Istanbul Convention without any reservation, and also the adaptation of our local law number 62. Also the great effort of women and LGBTI civil society organizations in Turkey. Because the introduction of these law, also local law 6284, is the result of the work of civil society organization. They are involved in drafting it after the Turkey signed the Istanbul Convention. Though the government is not welcoming collaboration and dialogue with independent rights-based women's organizations, and the implementation of the law is very problematic before the withdrawal. The existing of these law in and of itself is a major achievement of a large-scale collaboration of women NGOs nationally in Turkey. I would like a summarize of the effect of women civil society organizations in Turkey in review process, also shadow report process. Since 1998, the Assembly of Women's Shelters and Solidarity Centers, Turkey, has brought women NGOs and independent women activists together and serve as a platform to share their experiences in the fighting violence against women, to create common ground, to create common policies, and form a permanent network between organizations and institutions, despite the women's human rights climbed in Turkey. Until now, during the counter-evaluation phase in September 2017, a civil society organization platform called Istanbul Convention Monitoring Platform prepared and submitted a shadow report to the Gravio Committee. The joint comments and suggestions of the Istanbul Convention Monitoring Platform were an important reference point for the Gravio evaluation report on Turkey and published on 2018. Especially since 2019, the government in Turkey has adopted a discourse against gender equality and excluded independent NGOs, rights-based NGOs, from policy-making procedures. Until now, most of speakers said. As a result, influencing the government and promoting gender-sensitive policies for the elimination of violence against women has become a more difficult task for women's NGOs nowadays. However, women's organizations and networks to combat gender inequality and back forward across the country. But we are hopefully, and we are not thinking negative. And in 2020, last year, a big umbrella platform called ESHIK, Women's Platform for Equality, established. This is an umbrella platform for over more than 340 women's and LGBTI organizations. Call on political parties to take action against gender-based violence and discrimination. This platform has established in order to protect rights in many areas, not just only violence and to abuse and to eliminate and to protect all women's rights in Turkey. And now this topic, the hot topic is Turkey's withdrawal from the Istanbul Convention. EŞİK also issued an urgent appeal to the Council of Europe to disregard the President Erdogan's unconstitutional decree as null and void, and to recognize that the Istanbul Convention remains in full force and affecting Turkey policy. I would like to summarize that since the withdrawal decision March 20, yes, NGOs urge to Turkey to repeal presidential decision and announce its recommitment to the Istanbul Convention. Encourage other member states of the Council of Europe to challenge Turkey's decisions. As independent women organizations in Turkey, we are working together. As you know, not all of us, some NGOs are not NGOs. We are called them gongos, non-governmental or like that. That is why, as independent, right-based women NGOs, we call on everyone who wish to exercise exercise and to exercise their fundamental rights and liberties and live in a democratic space based on the rule of law as free and equal individuals free from violence. To uphold the Istanbul Convention mostly. We have also never give up the Istanbul Convention, as I'm also BPW Istanbul member. I have also membership in lots of women NGOs, and I'm also co-founder at the Equality and Inclusion Network. What we are doing, we are working together in all women issues because, as I said, we are independent women NGOs, and we will never give up the Istanbul Convention, and we will not give up our fundamental rights. We will not relinquish our right to live in equality and free from violence. I would like to mention that in order to ensure that women and girls live free from violence, in line with the principle of gender equality and the commitment to leave no one behind of the 2030 global agenda, we need more solidarity than ever before in the future. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ayşe, for your contribution. Katarzyna is back, so without further comments, if she would like to conclude with a couple of minutes, I would like to give her the floor first, please.
Thank you very much, and I'm sorry again. Now I have some other connection, so hopefully it will be better. I think that I covered mostly what I wanted to say, and just maybe to finish about sexual violence, where I stopped, I presume, because it's quite important. One of the very important issue that it's now quite often commented in Poland as in terms of sexual violence is the issue of definition of rape, that our definition perhaps in Turkey is the same problem. I don't know, because as you know, the convention promotes and oblige countries to have this consent-based definition and approach to rape, so that each sexual act without consent of the victim is a sexual violence or is rape. And in Poland, we have the definition that there should be force or illegal threat or deceit used in order to involve a person in sexual relation. So then it's rape when something like that was done. And of course, it's interpreted quite broadly by courts, and it can be some kind of psychological violence and or other things that are used in order to have to rape person. But anyway, it's not enough just to say no. So so it's not enough just to have lack of consent. We also have sexual harassment is very weakly covered by Polish law. We have only mostly labor code provisions on that. So sexual harassment in employment environment is punished under labor code. But for instance, in academia or in school or in other places, okay, it's covered by some penal provisions, but it's not explicitly as sexual harassment. So then it's really difficult to argue that it was a harassment, especially when it was something like, saying words or, some other manifestation of that. So the last thing is that, as it was mentioned, the present government is making very open statements against Istanbul Convention. And as already Agnieszka said, now we have the motion in Constitutional Tribunal, which was asked by the Prime Minister to check if convention is in line with Polish constitution, and it was obviously step to avoid undertaking decision if we should withdraw now. So it's especially Ministry of Justice is really pushing pressure to withdraw from the convention, and so it's some kind of hot potato that was sent by the Prime Minister to the Constitutional Tribunal. But as you probably know, Constitutional Tribunal in Poland is now it's not independent court anymore, and it's under influence of the government. And as you probably know, it's this abortion judgment, this ban of abortion that was introduced by the Constitutional Tribunal. It was also, on request of the government. So we can be sure that the Constitutional Tribunal will rule what the government asks. So this is the main picture, and I will be happy to answer your question. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Katarzyna. I would like to thank all of you, and if you would like to have any questions, I would like to give a couple of minutes for comments and questions from the floor. Would anyone like to comment or ask a question to our panelists? I know the time is running, but in that case, if anyone would like to come up with a question, I would just like to make a few comments. As Ayşe mentioned, women's movement in Turkey, but also in Europe, in the globe, is very much powerful. So it is in Turkey, we have established new platforms. We have many platforms who have been running for 20, 30 years, like the Women's Coalition, European Women's Lobby. So it is we get our power from getting united and loud. I mean, that's why I wanted to share with you in the chat box as well our report of European Women's Lobby, which actually highlights the positive impact of Istanbul Convention on the ground, on those countries that implemented and ratified the convention. So I think we need more positive messaging around how we can uphold Istanbul Convention, as well as how the states are responsible. I would also like to stressed the importance of the Venice Commission. It's a body under the Council of Europe that the PACE, Parliamentary Assembly, has actually requested by European Women's Lobby, Women's Coalition, many women organizations on the ground to look into this, withdrawal decision. And right now, PACE has invited Venice Commission to work on a report opinion, stressing on the modalities of ratification and denunciation of Istanbul, European Council of Europe conventions. So, because this is also a unique case, a country withdrawing from a convention by signing, being the first, and ratifying the first, implementing first, and withdrawing first. This is not acceptable at any level for the international human rights mechanisms to be upheld. So we will not give up on our fight, but this is not only a fight, but this is a positive impact for, we have to look at it from a positive angle, and we have to strengthen our solidarity, as my friends have stressed. Thank you very much, everyone, and thank you very much for your sharing, for your time, for your patience with Friday evening. But I think today we only got stronger, and the message is very strong in itself. Say Istanbul Convention saves lives, and it's ours. So I would like to give the floor for the last comments to our host, Selda Hanım. Please, the floor is yours.
Thank you so much, Aslan. This was a wonderful moderation. Thank you. I mean, you are full of energy at this time, and I think all the audience is full of energy. I would like to thank to our panelists, of course. I have learned a lot of things from you all, and I'm still asking myself, I have listened to Sibel Hanım, Hande, and Agnieszka. Is this Istanbul Convention still in force or not? I mean, my life is, according to the Constitution, it is in force, but we have withdrawn. So what is my last point is, we have to understand this. So, and what about the next steps, what we can do, and what is our mission, and what is our action plan from now on as a women organization, and with all the unification with other women organizations, let's say. So I
saw a couple of hands. Yeah. Sorry, Serdan, I will be happy to give the floor to
thank you,
Berenice. Maybe.
Hello, Berenice Bengtsson. Sorry, do you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Yes, thank you very much to all the panelists and to organizer for this important event. I was wondering also the same thing, what will be the next action? So the action theme for this triennium is actions through cooperation. So I think what we can do in the local level also for our clubs to spread more information about what is happening in Turkey and what could happen also in Poland. So I guess that we can use social media also to spread more knowledge and more awareness about the situation with this Istanbul Convention. So just to think about it, how we can cooperate in Europe, in the different clubs. So just take into account BPV Sweden is really interested in cooperate and spread more information and about the situation, because it's really worrying for the whole continent. And we are afraid, of course, of a domino effect. So thank you very much for this evening, and I'm looking forward to more cooperation about this.
Thank you very much. I think there was another hand from UK or Albieta Kuklins. Are you also willing to take the floor? Or Helen from BPW, UK, please. Anyone else? Agnieszka, yes, please. I think she wanted to take the floor, please. You're muted. Yes.
Important thing, because it is clear that the issue is not only about women rights and combating violence, but also about the rule of law. And former commissioner in the European Union, former commissioner responsible for gender equality, Vera Jourova, now is responsible for rule of law. And I think that it is important connection which should be used by BPW. Also, from my experience, all the action in social media are important, but official letters to official institutions are even more important, because public opinion, international pressure on the high level discussions, they are very effective. And I think that that NGOs, women NGOs, don't use this tool, this way of official communication, official statements to officials who are responsible and are in power in particular field. So commissioners of European Union are important, but also official letters to our governments, not only actions in social media, but something more formal is very needed. And cooperation all over the world, international cooperation.
Thank you very much. I think this is the very good final remark. Maybe I would highlight that from what Agnieszka and Berenice have said from Sweden. I think it is two ways. One is as official bodies are responsible. They should be accountable of what they are promised to do, that they're obliged to do. So we have to call them to do their job much better, to uphold the Istanbul Convention and all the human rights mechanisms. Because if this happens to Istanbul Convention today, tomorrow it can happen to CEDAW. It can happen to another international convention, Nazareth Convention. There is no limit. So if one attack is accepted, then it may open another attack to women's rights and LGBTI plus rights and human rights family. The other aspect is, as you all mentioned, actually, the power of civil society, independent women's organizations, and cooperation between women organizations and LGBTI plus organizations. So whatever is under attack is our rights. So it's all together, we are under this. There are campaigns actually launched by many platforms and organizations, including one on United for Istanbul Convention, which brings women's organizations and LGBTI organizations together to tackle this anti-gender, blocks at all levels. So I think BPW has already flamed another cooperation within itself, and thank you very much for that too. I don't know if Selda would like to take the floor last time, but I would like to thank you all, and that will be from me. You won't hear from me more. Thank you very much for your expertise, for your inspiration to all of us. So we'll continue. Nothing stops here. We just continue from here. We begin from here. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much to you.
Yes, Aslıhan, you are right. We begin from here, and we will be together more than ever. And thank you all. It was really nice, Kasia. You supported the whole event with this very, very nice and esteemed panelists, and I also would like to thank Turkish panelists, Sibel Hanım, Hande Hanım, Göknur Hanım, and Ayşe. And I want to have a picture of all of you. It will be a nice remembrance for the day. So please have your style and, so I take a print shot. So we have 34 people. I don't know how I can fix this, everyone in one picture. I don't know, but okay. So everybody, or whatever. Okay. So 1, 2, 3.
Ciao Anu, ciao Selda. Ciao.
Ciao. Okay, wait a moment.
Ciao,
I'll take another one.
Kasia.
Okay, great. I think I made 2 pictures, and so we have everyone. Okay, thank you. Have a nice Friday. So bye-bye. Thank you all. Thank you. Good evening. Bye-bye. Bye bye.
Ciao.
Serkan Bey,
Ciao,
toplantı
ciao.
yapacak mıyız yoksa kaçıyor muyuz? Bir
Yapalım.
değerlendirme yapmak istiyorsanız
Olur, yapalım. Yapalım.
If you want to assess, I will be happy. Agnieszka,
Okay.
Katarska, if you want to say, they're gone.
Thank you very much, Selva.
Thank you. Bye
Thank
bye,
you.
Kasia.
Thank you. Bye bye. Hello, Lucinda. Bye.